So I am not from Morganza. I'm from Baton Rouge, but I'm part of the Serio family out here. My grandfather was Rudy Serio. He was the youngest of the Serios born out here. But he raised his family in Baton Rouge. So I didn't grow up coming to Morganza. I would pass through it every single year when we would go to Easter for the family reunion in Ennis. We would have to pass through Morganza, and my mom would always point everything out in the town as we would ride through. She'd start as soon at the dip, and she'd say, "There's the dip. We'd get ice cream. There's Cedar Club where your grandparents used to go dancing. There's St. Anne's. There's Uncle Charlie's house is on the highway." She'd point out the station, Granny's house, and Melançon's, of course, and then we'd be out of town. And on the way back, she'd point it all. We'd say, "Point it all out again," But for some reason, this past Easter, when we went back through it, she pointed everything out just like she always does, and we all looked out the window as she did it. And I said, "Can we go back and spend a day in Morganza? I want to see what this town is about. I've never really spent time here." So we did. We made a plan today. I had a whole list of things I wanted to do. One was go see Cousin Retta at the church. That was the first thing on the list. I got emotional as soon as we got to the church, thinking about all my family members that have been married, just all the special things that have happened in that church and how many stories I've heard about it. And then we ended the day just hanging out at the station with my great uncles. And when I was there, I started meeting locals. I started coming every Thursday because I loved being at the station. So every Thursday I've been coming and just hanging out at the station, and I've started meeting locals. I've met some of you. I've met relatives that I didn't know. And I realized there was something special about this town. I could absolutely sense it and feel it. Of course, it's the people here, but there's also just a feeling you get when you're here that this used to be Mayberry not too long ago. So we had our family reunion at St. Anne's in July, and I had been thinking about, I want to be in Morganza. How can I be there more? There's nothing to do there. What can I create for me to do there? So I planned a family reunion at St. Anne's. We had a dance. We had a band, because Serios have to dance if they get together. We had a blast. And my grandfather introduced me to Miss Adele Robillard, who I found out was his first cousin. I had never met her. And of course she said, "Oh, come spend the day with me. I'd love to spend time with you." So I did. And I started sharing with her my dream about Morganza coming alive again one day, and being a 1950s or just step back in time, nostalgic place, and tourists coming in. And she said, "Let's do it." And I was like, "Okay, I'm from Baton Rouge. You're 92 years old. What are we going to do with Morganza, me and you?" So she took me to Mr. George Miller from New Roads, because he hosts events out there. He helps plan events. And he then took me to Miss Jeannie and said, because he took me to Miss Jeannie and said, "You really need to talk to her because she's good at marketing, and if you want to have any events in Morganza, she can help that happen." So I come in with this sock hop poster, and I said, "Everybody thinks I'm crazy for wanting to revitalize the town, so I'm just going to plan fun events for the town. Let's have a sock hop." And she said, "Oh, okay, that looks great, but what's really behind all this?" And so I shared a little bit how I've fallen in love with the town recently and all this. She said, "Okay, we're going to put that on the back burner, and we're going to really focus on the town, because I think you're onto something, and I think something can happen." So she was my little cheerleader, cheering me on. She encouraged me to get a small group together to have a discussion. We were going to meet in Uncle Johnny's den over coffee, 10 people. And it grew. There were going to be more people here. Other things must have come up, but it grew into what you see today, and hoping to have more meetings with more people down the road. But I've heard that there was a revitalization effort 20 years ago, I'm not sure how long ago. And a real effort was made, and there was a turnaround. People started to see it worked. Something worked, but then eventually it fizzled out. All I can say about this effort, you're going to hear more about it, but this goes beyond Morganza, and this would be a parish-wide effort.
A statewide effort.
And then eventually a statewide effort to market Morganza in a way that tourists and visitors want to come and see what this little town's about. So we'll talk more about the plan in a little bit, but I asked Ashley to be here today. Her grandfather is my great-grandfather's brother. We met this summer when she came to see my grandfather in the hospital, and I talk about Morganza all the time now. My husband's like, "You work in Morganza," to a conversation with anybody. And she said, "Oh, I love the town too. I grew up going to see my grandma out there." And so I asked her to come today and I wanted you to see the younger generation, people not from Morganza who love this place and are committed to doing something, because I know a lot of y'all are tired and say, we've done this, we're tired, we've paid our dues, and I totally get that. So I think it's important to see another group of people. So she took off of work a half a day, left her 1-year-old, and she's here to share her heart. So thanks for coming.
Well, thank you guys so much for letting me be here and kind of talk to you a little bit about my history. A few of you in the room know me and know, my whole story, but I'm Ashley Benoit. I come from the Serio family as well. Like she said, my grandmother is Inez and my grandfather is the late Joseph Serio. So I've been coming to Morganza my whole life. My grandmother has spent her whole life since she's been married in the same house that my grandfather built. And so we subsequently have spent every holiday. We've come for sleepovers. I mean, we've spent so much time here. And, I could walk the path from my grandmother's house to my grandfather's grave behind St. Anne's with my eyes closed. I have done it so many times. That is one of the things that my cousins and I, there were a couple of things we always had to do when we come to Morganza. We always have to go to the graveyard and sit at my grandfather's grave and sing a song to him. And we did always have to go to the grocery store and see how many pieces of candy Uncle Woods would let us have. The number always got bigger and bigger as we grew up. So we spent so much time here in Morganza, and the memories that we've made here are just irreplaceable to me. But my roots do go a little bit deeper. I was born Ashley Morgan, so I'm a direct descendant of Charles Morgan, the man for whom this place was named. So I remember growing up and learning that, putting the pieces together, and my mom and dad telling me the story. And I still remember, the moment that I realized that not only was this the place that my mother grew up and was raised, and we have so many memories, but also that my father's family is the reason that this place is here. And so it really started to feel like Morganza was mine. It belonged to me. That's what it felt like to me, and I was so proud of that. Growing up and going to college and getting busy, and my grandmother's getting so much older now, and so it was harder for her to have holidays at her house, and we sometimes meet at Aunt Nuthy and Uncle Woods' house for holidays, but it's just gotten a little less. The older that I get, it's just a little less that we get to come out here. So that's kind of heartbreaking for me, especially now that I have a family of my own. Since my daughter has been born, though, I've been trying to bring her out here more. I would love her to have memories like I had, but I know that as we get older, as the town gets older, our time is limited. But then Natalie came along and really kind of shared her vision with me, and not only do I love Morganza, like it's in my heart and it's in my soul, but also I'm very nostalgic. I'm a very nostalgic person. Growing up, everybody would say, "What decade do you belong in?" I would always say, hands down, the 1950s. That is where I belong. If I could just be a little housewife, wearing my little sundress and raising a family, and when things were just simpler and
not high tech.
That's right. Things were just so much simpler then, and
It's very appealing.
yeah. So not only is my heart in Morganza, but I feel like my heart is back then too. So whenever she shared that vision with me, not only does she want to bring Morganza back, but she wants it to be a place of nostalgia. I just thought, that sounds impossible, but sign me up. Sign me up, I'm all in. So that's what brought me here today. I'm so thankful that y'all are letting me be here and be a part of this, and I hope we can take it all the way.
Thank you for coming.
I'm happy to be here.
Give him a little hand. That was real nice.
Okay, Natalie, you had to go. Natalie's
done.
Oh, you're done? Okay. Office of Tourism, that's next on your agenda. How did Jeannie become involved? Well, an outsider coming in, you know. Well, Morganza's in my roots and in my family. I guess I spent half my life at that Cedar Club. And if you know where I came from, I was a military. And when this little girl came back and I read her little bio and hers and how they were connected, well, she had on there, what was your Militella connection?
Joe Militello.
Joe Militella was from Fort Ocean. I said, girl, I looked at her, I said, you my cousin. Freddie Militella's my uncle. Freddie Militella's my cousin. So we're related too. And my brother married a Ramagos, a CJ Militella. And that little school, we danced at the sock hop over there. You know, so Morganza means a lot to all of us in this. And by the way, pat yourself on the back for coming. Because when this little young lady walked in my office and she told me what she had dreamed for Morganza, I said, little girls, have a seat. You and I are going to have a talk. I said, you can't do this alone. I'm going to hold your hand and I'm going to walk you through this. And we're going to do it. But anyway, she's got a lot of great ideas, a lot of big visions. And what I told her, you know, Morganza is a dying community, you know. When and I didn't get to introduce myself. Some of you may not know me. I'm Jeannie Andre. I'm the director of the Office of Tourism. I've been there 10 years, and I've got 2 tourist commissioners here, Mr. Wilma Moore. And this is she was an assistant. Dana worked with us for a while as my assistant. Also have Linda Lambert. She's now my assistant. And our vice president of the Tourist Commission, which is David Gyro. Also, both of them are both on my film commission, which I've started for the parish. And we've had filming in Morganza at LeBlanc Processing. We also filmed at the Bears Den. So guess what? We don't forget about Morganza. We've never, ever forgot about Morganza. But let's see, where's my little intro? When she walked into my office with this little sock hopper, and she told me there was a little complication with the gym and the this and the that. I said, you know, a sock hop is fine, and we're going to work on that. But the ideas that you have, you know, I think we're on to something. I think we can save Morganza, you know. And so what do you mean? I said, well, you got the nostalgic feel. You want the town to look a certain way and feel a certain way. And you know, they live in an atmosphere that's a hustle bustle kind of life. Technology, computers, cell phones. You know, people now want to go back to a simpler form of life, you know. And there's some mock towns like the little Cajun village, Vermilionville. So I could feel what she was trying to, her concept. I said, you know what? This is what we're going to do. We'll market it as, well, I'm telling you, because we can't use Mayberry. But Morganza's like a Mayberry kind of town, but you're going to be a Morganza kind of town. And Mr. Dewey Reed set me straight on that. But yes, you have that feel. People want to come back to that. People want to live simple. Your crime rate is low. Why would I want to come back to Morganza? The people in this room is connected to Morganza. You're here for a reason. Is it coincidental that this young lady, her husband is a Baptist preacher? And is it coincidental that
Catholics in here, you telling us?
Wait, I don't care if they're Catholic. We might start a war, huh? This little lady is her great-grandfather named Morganza. There's a reason. God has got his hand in this, okay? Is it coincidental? She walks in my office and I said, we're going to run with this. And I'm kin to her. I said, but if we're going to do something, we're going to do it right. Because, number one, I said, we're going to work with our governmental body. Number two, we're going to work with our parish officials. Number three, if we raise money for Morganza, whatever project in your bylaws or whatever you want to come up with and spend money on to revitalize Morganza, we're going to come back to Morganza. We're going to make sure that money's handled properly. And I'm going to get you to the right people, places, and things to make this happen. And every phone call I instructed her to make, the people said, I'm coming. You're right. I can't believe. I'm coming. Natalie, there's a reason behind it. There's a reason. It's meant to be. And if it wasn't meant to be, this meeting right here today wouldn't be possible. Y'all wouldn't be here today. Y'all care. There's somebody. Everybody in this room's got some kind of connection and care about Morganza. But what could I help Natalie with? Well, I could help her promote I promote the parish. I could tell you where some people think we are in New Roads and we favor New Roads. We'll tell them quick. We don't belong to New Roads. We belong to Poincapie Parish, and we have 4 municipalities. We've not forgotten about any of them. And why is Morganza so important? You know, why? You know, well, Morganza doesn't just belong to us. It belongs to Poincapie. Morganza just don't belong to Poincapie. It belongs to the state of Louisiana. Am I correct? It deserves to be saved. It belongs to the whole state, and it's something that we all need to put effort into to try to revitalize it. I have knowledge of state programs that's out there, and I wanted to be able to give her the best advice that I could give her, and lead her to the right people that will make this work for her. And I could get her visual concept out there to the public. I have public connections with all forms of the media. I got the media just at my fingertips, and they work with me. And if I get a story going, you can ask Miss Dana. I did a story on a couple of guys in Poincapie, and I made front page of 3 major newspapers with that same article. Front page of 3 major newspapers, the Advocate in New Orleans, Riverside Reader, and the Banner was 4 with that story. And this little guy said, "Well, I know, you wrote that article in it." If it's something that strikes somebody's interest, and it's something that relates, that you can touch somebody with, they're going to write about you. When you get the media involved in a story about Morganza, they'll follow us. A 3-second spot on channel 9 or channel 2 is $10,000. We can't afford that. I can tell you quick. But I can tell you what, I can call channel 9 tomorrow and ask Mr. George Miller what I did with the Veterans Monument. Ask that man sitting right there what I did with the Veterans Monument. We had the money for the Veterans Monument within 6 months. So, yes, we're going to do this. I wanted to help Natalie achieve her goal and market it as a Morganza kind of town. I knew I could research the options with the state. I could educate the townspeople. And I knew the importance of restoring one of Poincapie Parish's municipalities. But most importantly, I can inform others about the importance of revitalization of a town or a district within Poincapie Parish, and that is to increase revenue, increase and promote tourism, increase economic development, restore buildings and structures, increase cultural activities, increase business, and create greater sense of community identity and involvement, and make you feel good about becoming involved. I could get people motivated, and I can ask people to help me rebuild a community. So today I have 2 guest speakers for y'all. I'm going to announce. I called a guy. First thing came to my mind was the Louisiana Main Street program. And why I chose that program was because you're underneath a governmental body and you work with your governmental body, and you wouldn't have to file a 501c3. And if people gave you a donation, it's a tax write-off, and it's legit. And it's a lot of trouble to refile for 501c3 every year. It's something you have to renew as a nonprofit. So I called Mr. Ray Scriber. He's over Louisiana Main Street program, and we got to talking. And in your little folders, you're going to see a couple of little diagrams that look like this and like this. And it's just an example of how these structures work. The Louisiana Main Street program, and I'm going to go briefly over it, not much, because I'm going to let these 2 ladies take it from there. You have to hire an executive director. And when Ray and I spoke, I knew right off the bat that Morganza would not be able to afford that. You know, I know we all have we had revenue cuts from our parish, and I know all municipalities did. So the more I talked to Mr. Ray, he started, and when you go home, there's things on the back, the pros and cons of a Main Street program. And on the back of this Louisiana cultural program, there will be pros and cons about the Louisiana cultural program. But the more I talked to Mr. Ray Scriber, he led me to, and I'm going to introduce Miss Gay Hamilton, and she's the manager over the Louisiana Cultural Districts, okay? And she brought a guest, and her name is Cheryl Castillo, and she is the director over the Louisiana Arts Division of the Arts. So I will let them take over from here and explain these two programs to y'all.
Division of the Arts, what I want to share with you is that we have found, and not just us, but all over, in this country, outside of this country, that arts are what revitalize a lot of communities, full towns, full states, and full regions. Artists can see things that so many of us can't see. Having those creative abilities where maybe I'm looking at from going to A to B, heck, they'll take me on all these paths that go out to C, D, F, and E, and then get to B in ways that I never thought about. And it's because of how they see things and how they visualize things. So people now are really starting to understand the importance of artists. They create wonderful pieces, but it also, in what they do, it enhances the beauty of where we live, of how we get from day to day. When you think about where you see art, art comes in many forms. It can be visual art, it can be movement, dancing, it's music, it's singing. But think about how that affects you in your life. What does it get you through? How does it help you accomplish or maybe get through stressful times? How does it just make you feel good, make you feel happy? But people, like I said, are now realizing the importance of that.